I've been seeing a lot of commentary online about the Boondocks, whether the show should come back, and how much of an impact it made on Black media. While I've always found the show intriguing and often humorous, today I want to talk about a topic that doesn't get nearly enough attention: how the Boondocks portray women, especially Black women, in its early seasons. I want to focus specifically on seasons 1 and 2, when Aaron McGruder still had full creative control. As authors Tyree and Krishnasamy note, cartoonist Aaron McGruder entered the syndicated comic strip era in 1998. As an African American, McGruder's social commentary, political criticism, and jokes have a perspective on America unlike white syndicated cartoonists. Yet one cannot assume that his comic strip is Afrocentric simply because McGruder is African American. Expanding on this, scholar Sheena Howard further observes about the comic strips. In the Boondocks, it is evident that the majority of insults situate the Black female as the site of humor in the dozens game. Women become the brunt of the joke, rendering them victim to condemnation. In over 200 strips, the presence of the Black female voice is non-existent, yet humor is directed towards Black women on several occasions. This insightful critique highlights a deeply rooted issue that unfortunately carries over into the animated series. While the show offers a lot of cutting edge satire and some iconic moments, when it comes to the portrayal of women and girls, the show has some serious flaws, ones that reflect deeper issues of misogyny, colorism, fatphobia, and even internalized anti-Blackness. The very fact that Aaron McGruder notably critiqued Tyler Perry's works through a fictional character basically was aligned with homophobia. Rather than directly addressing Perry's frequent misrepresentation of Black women, speaks volumes about McGruder's own selective focus and blind spots regarding the complexities of Black female portrayal. Similarly, the infamous song Homies Over H's was very catchy among many, and while arguably intended to highlight how men sometimes prioritize platonic male bonds, ironically seemed to lean more to homophobic undertones than a genuine exploration of how women are devalued in such hierarchies. It's clear that the program's provocative humor and edgy style primarily target a male audience, particularly young men among different racial backgrounds. The show delves into the complexities of Black male identity through its characters, employing adult language, sexual and violent content, and gross out humor to achieve its distinctive edginess. This focus, however, often comes at the expense of its female characters. Let's begin with the character Christelle. Like the champagne, Granddad meets her in season 1, episode 3. She's depicted as a sex worker who's manipulative but beautiful and young, two traits Granddad lusts after immediately. He doesn't demonize her profession outright, but it's clear that her youth and beauty are the main things he values. Chriselle is portrayed with blonde hair and fair skin and speaks with a Black accent, leading Riley to call her a fake Mariah Carey. This layering of fair skin with a Black accent complicates her racial presentation and hints at a commentary on performance and authenticity within Black female identity, even as her primary role is that of a sexualized object. Meanwhile, she's using Granddad for a place to stay and some fast cash. In fact, Huey and Riley conduct a private investigation, uncovering irrefutable evidence that she is indeed a sex worker and is explicitly manipulating Granddad for his money. Granddad, however, is so obsessed with her fair skin and perceived beauty that he stubbornly dismisses their photographic evidence as Photoshop, showing just how deeply color-struck he truly is. Though Christelle was presumably willing to be a prostitute, her character also inadvertently depicted the dark side of pretty privilege and was carefully crafted to elicit both laughter and a degree of sympathy, especially in the moment Granddad stepped in.
What woman, sir? This here is a hoe.
There's a memorable line from Riley in the episode saying if you're taking her grocery shopping and on dates, she's basically a garden tool. It's meant to be funny, but the implication is disturbing. Not only is Riley a child, this joke, viewed by countless young Black people, subtly normalizes a dangerous transactional dynamic between men and women. It reinforces the belief that men are entitled to sex or affection in exchange for financial support or dates. And when this kind of messaging appears in a show many young Black viewers watch, it becomes more than just a joke. Later in season 2, episode 6, Granddad explores online dating. And the show depicts every woman he meets as either unattractive, unstable, or undesirable. Aaron McGruder often paints darker skinned women or those who are more overtly Black in appearance as undesirable. One example in particular, so basically, I don't think the character had a name. She's an online date that Granddad basically settled for. She's darker skinned, she has short hair, and Granddad allows her into the house. Eventually, Granddad calls her ugly, saying she basically committed a crime, and anybody who lies on their profile should go to jail. This interaction obviously is aggressive and hostile, and the character herself is based on the trope of a sapphire or angry Black woman. Her exaggerated features and mannerisms turn her into an object of mockery. The very fact that Granddad allowed this online date into his home, despite clearly not being attracted to her, strongly suggests his primary motive was to have intercourse. Beyond the comedic relief, this raises a crucial question. Why would he entertain someone he had no genuine interest in? This behavior isn't just misogyny. It mirrors how some people view dark-skinned women and or anyone who's seen as undesirable, objectifying them and similarly dismissing them, usually in broader society. Meanwhile, she is idealized despite her violent tendencies. She is beautiful, broken, and ultimately self-destructive, an updated version of the tragic mulatto archetype. Ironically, Granddad seems to consistently have a type. The women he is attracted to, from Crystal to Luna, tend to be ambiguous or lighter skinned. While Granddad is often blinded by their conventional beauty, only Huey and Riley, the younger protagonists, seem to be able to see past their idealized appearances and acknowledge their flaws or manipulative tendencies. This contrasts sharply with characters like Ebony Brown, no pun intended, who is presented with seemingly no flaws, yet Granddad still manufactures reason in his mind why he cannot be with her, highlighting a deeper, insidious colorism and an unfortunate manifestation of internalized anti-Blackness within his preferences. Granddad pursues Luna. Despite her violent outbursts and dependency issues, she eventually dies by unaliving herself after her friend Nicole encourages her to be suspicious of Granddad. Luna's tragedy is played straight and with empathy, unlike the ridicule aimed at the darker women. Moving on, we encounter Nicole, Luna's friend and attack of the killer Kung Fu Wolf. Y'all know what. Nicole quickly emerges as a destructive force, often relegated to the background where she offers Luna advice, while seemingly caring, portrayed as loud, judgmental, and overly suspicious. Her singular purpose in the narrative is to undermine Luna's burgeoning happiness by planting seeds of distrust against Granddad, ultimately pushing Luna further into instability. This portrayal not only reinforces the insidious stereotype that Black women cannot genuinely support each other, but also highlights the show's distressing tendency to create female characters whose sole function is to sow discord or sabotage another woman's joy. Now we're going to talk about Jasmine Du Bois and her mother. So Jasmine Du Bois is the biracial daughter of Tom and Sarah. She is sweet, innocent, and desperate for approval, particularly from Huey. She is often depicted as naive and harmless, a version of the tragic mulatto, reimagined for children. In the comic strip, Jasmine was more politically aware and self-reflective. On television, she's stripped of this agency and turned into a wide-eyed child who doesn't understand the world around her. She is docile and emotionally soft and therefore acceptable. What's especially jarring is how the Boondocks treats Jasmine as a sheltered, innocent child, someone who must be protected, even while the unnamed Black girl in the R. Kelly trial episode is adultified and blamed for her abuse. Jasmine is allowed to be a child. She gets to ask silly questions, have emotional reactions, and express fear without ridicule. Meanwhile, the young girl in the courtroom is depicted as complicit, smiling as if she enjoyed being violated, This disparity reveals a painful truth about how Black girls are denied the right to be children. The contrast speaks volumes about the show's deeper colorist and misogynistic undertones and reflects a wider cultural issue in which some girls are seen as victims while others are seen as willing participants. And this phenomenon is known as adultification. According to Amy Halberstadt, adultification is a perception that a child is older and more mature than their age or current developmental stage would indicate, and is thought to result in the erroneous view that a child does not need the protections usually afforded to children in the United States. Research shows that Black children, particularly Black girls, are more likely to be perceived this way. Studies consistently show that Black girls are viewed as less innocent and more adult-like than their white peers, leading to more harsh treatments and less empathy in both media and real-life institutions like schools and the justice system. Sarah Du Bois is the most stable adult woman in the series. While her primary comedic role often revolves around her exaggerated sexual obsession with celebrity Black men, which typically undermines her humanity, she also often appears rather bored and seems to support Tom primarily due to his role as the family's breadwinner, further limiting her independent characterization. She ultimately becomes a variation of the emasculating wife. This dynamic highlights a curious privilege afforded to Jasmine and Sarah. They largely exist in the background as relatively static placeholders, observing or reacting to the chaos primarily driven or contributed to by the male characters, yet still safe. Many of the other Black female characters in the series are constantly depicted as actively fighting for survival or struggling to gain economic or emotional capital in a world that often exploits or dismisses them. One of the most disturbing examples of misogyny in the Boondocks is the trial of R. Kelly. While Huey's speech is powerful, every Black woman in their courtroom is a caricature. They are loud or depicted as overweight and ghetto, irrational, and obsessed with R. Kelly's fame. The women in the jury further exemplify this by showing displeasing faces, rolling their necks, and literally shaming Tom for his interracial marriage, a detail completely irrelevant to the actual crimes at hand, yet the defense attorney uses because he feels that it will persuade their judgment against, basically, Tom as a prosecuting attorney. Furthermore, the victim is shown smiling and claiming she enjoyed the abuse. This is not satire. Baby, this is victim blaming. This portrayal reinforces harmful ideas that Black girls are fast, that victims lie, and that women enable abuse because they're obsessed with fame. The explicit depiction of a young girl stating she enjoyed being urinated on dangerously undermines the victim. It's deeply troubling to recall the real-life instances where Black individuals, despite knowing of underage victims, bought R. Kelly tapes or searched for his content online, contributing to a culture of complicity. I also think of artists like Sparkle, who was under R. Kelly's management and a mentee, basically, and how he exploited her niece, a minor at the time, who some would believe might be the character in the show. Nonetheless, they were both severely impacted in real life, and Sparkle would even believe that she was blackballed in the music industry. Reports from organizations like the Polaris Project indicate that Black women and girls are overrepresented among sex trafficking victims in the United States, underscoring the real-world impact of narratives that normalize the sexualization and exploitation of Black girls. Yes, I'm shaming Eric McGruder and the producers and everybody behind this thing, and the episode is just messy. Such stereotypes make it profoundly harder for young girls to speak up about abuse, particularly when the perpetrator is a figure of notoriety or power. It's basically damned if you do, damned if you don't. Satire without balance can easily slip into cruelty. While Tom goes home to a composed, intelligent white wife, the other Black women in the courtroom are treated as buffoons, easily manipulated, emotional, and incapable of critical thought. The misogyny within the Boondocks isn't limited to the adult characters. It also subtly creeps into the worldviews of Huey and Riley. Though too young to date, they adopt values that make you question whether they're learning any genuine respect for women and girls. Huey, despite his intellectual and revolutionary stance, constantly tries to enlighten and change Jasmine, who lives a life of relative ease and is often head over heels for his attention. His attempts to mold her reflect a subtle form of patriarchal condescension suggesting her innocent worldview is inherently flawed and needs correction. Meanwhile, Riley is utterly obsessed with hip hop culture and money, frequently referring to women as garden tools. This casual misogyny escalates dramatically during the R. Kelly trial, where he mocks the victims and actively protests on the behalf of R. Kelly, demonstrating a complete lack of empathy and a shocking embrace of harmful anti-woman rhetoric. His fervent support for R. Kelly, despite his otherwise apolitical nature, starkly reveals how deeply the devaluing of women is ingrained, overriding even basic moral judgment. What is especially ironic is that most of the women, despite their limited screen time, are still portrayed performing some kind of emotional labor. Whether it's Cristal manipulating Granddad while also comforting his loneliness, Luna seeking validation for her unhealed trauma, Nicole warning her friend, even if misguided, or the women in the R. Kelly courtroom defending a man who exploited women, black women, the labor remains. Even Uncle Ruckus's mother, as misinformed and self-hating as she is, tries to comfort and shape her son's identity in ways she thinks are helpful. Their acts to soothe, support, justify, or emotionally manage the men around them. Even the non-black or racially ambiguous women like Luna or Sarah, despite being treated with more romantic or narrative leniency, are also burdened with emotional histories of past abuse or unfulfilled desire. Whether coded as worthy or not, nearly every woman in this universe is shown trying to make herself acceptable, tolerable, or useful to the male ego. Yet very few of them are protected, heard, or humanized in return. Granddad's late wife, honored for maybe 10 seconds, then erased. Groupies and dancers, nameless, voiceless props. Uncle Ruckus's mom, a parody who wears a blonde wig and praises whiteness. Deborah LaVille, a powerful black woman, the only one kind of shown in the series, depicted as evil, greedy, and intent on destroying black people. Her security, famously nicknamed Crazy, further amplified this violent, unrestrained image by literally acting like a wild animal, brutally attacking anyone who went against LaVille's antics. This depiction also fits into the trope of the evil matriarch or villainous black executive, a character type that suggests that powerful black women are inherently corrupt. The media we consume shapes how we view each other and ourselves. When girls, especially black girls, are shown as disposable, angry, or only valuable for their looks, it limits how young people understand black womanhood, and when satire excuses those portrayals as just jokes, it makes it harder to call them out or demand better. As scholar Jennifer L. Barker notes, stereotypes of African Americans have been especially hard to fight against because they are all so encompassing and systemic in nature. Fighting against one sometimes means falling into another. Yet the growing acceptance that Black Americans are a diverse and complex people, and that there are many different shades of color and experience within the concept and reality of Black America, means that there can be space for contradiction and improvisation, as well as coherence and solidarity in the evolving understanding of Black identity. Her insight emphasizes that Blackness, especially Black womanhood, is not one way. Yet the Boondocks too often reduces its women to the margins of angry, sexualized, comedic, or broken. There's little improvisation, little nuance, and that's the problem. So should the Boondocks come back? A lot of people think so. They say we need more satire, more truth-telling, more raw comedy. But honestly, we've got enough critiques of the Black community. What we don't have enough of are shows that portray Black women as whole, loved, complex, and deserving of respect. Aaron McGruder's show was bold. However, it also leaned too heavily on harmful stereotypes, especially when it came to women whose portrayals were often filtered through a predominantly male gaze. Consequently, women largely serve as sex objects or evil and corrupt characters. The only recurring female characters are the neighbors, Sarah and Jasmine Du Bois, a white woman and her biracial daughter. When the only consistently good female characters are a deceased wife, a biracial child, and one decent housewife, it signals a profound imbalance. Ultimately, this reflects how the appeal and complexity of African American women and their stories remain severely restricted in popular media. While it's understood that Aaron McGruder is an intellectual, a Black man whose writings often depicted his real life experiences, portraying Black women as a monolith, as the show often did, reveals a profoundly distorted worldview. As an audience and as a community, we deserve better. Our girls, in particular, deserve to see themselves portrayed as whole, loved, and complex, not merely as objects of humor, scorn, or male fantasy. Therefore, it is imperative that future Black media creators, with their unique perspectives, consciously interrogate and dismantle these entrenched biases, offering narratives that truly empower and uplift. So while the Boondocks may live on in our nostalgia, it's time we demand more from the stories shaping our culture. What kind of narratives do you hope to see for Black women in media? Let me know your thoughts down below. And thank you so much for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see y'all next time.